Blog Talk Radio.
It seems we have a problem. I would like to introduce
Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Team.
Welcome to another edition of Bigfoots Pad Paranormal Radio. On the lines with me today, I have Nick, Mothman Poirier 1.0, and Brent, also known as the Magnificent Fabulous Archangel. And today we're going to be talking about apocalyptic theories, apocalyptic predictions, and similar topics. And today's show is mostly going to be forwarded by Nick.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I'll let you take over from here, Nick.
Okay, well, again, like Jer said, everybody, we're going to be talking about apocalypses and end-of-the-world theories. We're going to begin the show off with a little bit of news like we usually do. Jer, why don't you kick things off with a few news articles you have, and I got an interesting article to share with you guys in a minute.
All right, well, my first article is two mad scientists create a sleep mask that lets people control their dreams. And a twist straight out of the movie Inception, a duo of developers from Brooklyn, New York, have built a sleeping mask designed to allow people to have lucid dreams that they can control. While it may look like a standard sleeping mask, REMI has been billed as a special REM, or rapid eye movement enhancing device, that is supposed to help steer the sleeper into lucid dreaming by making the brain aware that it's dreaming. The goal of the product is to allow people to have dreams of their choice, from driving a race car to flying to having lunch with Abraham Lincoln, or whatever they want. So what do you think of that there, Brent?
I didn't hear the whole story. What was it about?
Oh, it's people made a mask that you can control your dreams with.
A mask?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Would you buy one?
Not really.
Nick puts on and purposely has nightmares.
He puts one on and he has NyQuil nightmares over and over again.
So, Nick, what's your opinion on this sleep mask? Do you think it could be a good invention, or do you think it's kind of silly?
I guess it's a good invention for the people who have the money to dole out for it. I think if you want to dream about something in particular, why not? I mean, there's some dreams I could name right now, but might not be appropriate for on air that I wouldn't mind having. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing, but again, you just need the money to pay for something like that.
That should be expensive, I'm assuming. I don't think that it's really being produced for the public yet, but I know there's at least a prototype. Because the article didn't really say if they're selling it or what the deal is. Here's a good one.
A stone
discovered by chance on the Isle of Canna is Scotland's first known example of a Bulan cursing stone, experts have revealed. Dating to about 800 AD, the stones are associated with early Christian crosses, of which there is one on the Isle. It was found in an old graveyard by the National Trust for Scotland's farm manager. The stone is about 25 centimeters in diameter and engraved with an early Christian cross. It was later found to fit exactly into a larger rectangular stone with a wormhole which was located at the base of the Canna Cross. The NTS, or the National Trust for Scotland manager of Canna, Stuart Connor, said the importance of the stone became clearer after he was notified of the discovery. He said, "We knew of the importance of the Bulan stones and that it could really be the significant find. Our head of archaeology confirmed a possible link to stones at the cross, and I was so excited that I went back out at 9 p.m. at night to check on whether it was fitted stone with a hole in it, like it said." So I guess apparently they found out that the stone fits inside another rectangular stone on this island. Pretty strange, don't you think?
Yeah, it is pretty weird.
Well, what do you think, Nick? Do you think it seems like there's been quite a few of these holy relic type things being found lately? I know we had a show on it like a year ago. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of supposed relics dating from biblical times, such as, I'll just throw this out there randomly really quick. I think out in Ethiopia there's a church that is supposed to have the original Ark of the Covenant. They say that Queen, I think her name was Bathsheba, went to go visit King Solomon, and they got their business on, and he liked her so much he gave her the Ark of the Covenant, and she brought it back to Ethiopia. Now this Ark of the Covenant is guarded by armed guards, and if you try to get into the chamber where it's kept, you'll be shot on the spot. So, yeah, it's pretty hardcore stuff.
What do you think, Brian? You think finding these holy relics is pretty interesting?
I don't know. It could be. It's interesting that they're finding all these relics, but I mean, it kind of sounds. Isn't that what they say in the Revelations, that they start finding all these holy relics and stuff?
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there later.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more news article before we do Nick. I wrote, Oxford University is hunting for the Yeti. In collaboration with the, Lausanne Museum of Zoology, Oxford University is inviting people and organizations with supposed evidence of the existence of the Yeti to submit it for testing. Anyone can submit an entry, and in the first instance, I'm getting tongue-tied here. In the first instance, all that's required is some data about the sample, what it is, when and where it was collected, that kind of thing. Once they've received a respectable number of samples, they'll choose the most convincing and ask the owners to send it in for scrutiny, including thorough genetic analysis. With any luck, the study should bring together the strongest evidence around the world to settle the issue once and for all, says Brian Sykes from Oxford University. So apparently a bunch of researchers and things from around the world are supposed to send in their evidence. I don't know if I would personally, but what's your opinion there, Nick?
It sounds like a good thing. People can submit their evidence to be tested by the scientific community, and if there's good evidence sent in, then that will lend even more credibility to the existence of a Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yeti in this regard. So I think it's a good thing.
Would you send in your evidence to Oxford, Brenton, for analysis?
Would I?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably not.
Brent is Oxford.
I created it.
He created.
But yeah, Nick, you had an article that you wanted to share?
Oh, yeah. Well, here's an interesting article for all you listeners out there. Down in Florida, the police went to answer an emergency call where apparently a man was being attacked. And when they found this man attacking another man, it became quite an odd situation because, first off, the attacker was butt naked, and secondly, he was eating the face of his victim. You heard me right, eating the face of his victim. So the police shot the cannibal zombie, whatever he is, and now the man who's having his face eaten off is going into the into trauma and in the intensive care in order to try to get better, because you can just imagine the amount of blood loss and the injury sustained that somebody would have if someone tried to eat the face off. The police say that the attacker was going through something called cocaine madness. And I guess cocaine madness is a thing that happens when somebody takes a large amount of drugs and then it heats the body temperature up really high and it cooks the internal organs, including the brain. So when it cooks the brain, basically the person becomes a living zombie. They lose any cognitive reasoning ability whatsoever, and they can do things like run around naked and try to bite people's faces off. What do you guys think about that right there?
That's weird. I mean, so what kind of drugs was there? Cocaine was what he was on?
That's what I got from the article, but I'm not sure exactly what drugs this guy was on. I'll probably do a follow-up on this because it does sound pretty interesting, because I know we were doing a show about zombies a few weeks ago, and technically I think you could call this man a zombie because his brain was literally cooked or literally baked. So he wasn't all the way there. He was just a corpse or a body that went on a rampage just like a zombie would. So basically he was brain dead from what I gather, and he, the nervous system kicked in and he tried to eat this poor man's face off. So this could be a real-life example of a zombie right here we're dealing with.
It is weird. I know it's, ironically, the last two or three shows we've done, there's been zombie-like stories. They're like 2 weeks too late.
Yeah, but it's just a weird story I thought I'd share. It, like I said, it possibly, again, shows a real-life example of a zombie. And, I'll let everyone else get the conclusions that they will from that information, but it's definitely just a weird story to talk about. Well, I guess now we'll get into the main topic of the day, which is apocalyptic and end times prophecies, theories, etc. The first theory I want to bring up is the World War III or the massive world, or just a massive war theory. Basically, in a nutshell, this theory states that there's going to be a giant war in which everyone's going to kill each other off. The most powerful countries in the world will unleash the most deadly weapons they have on the other countries, and when the rubble is cleared and the dust is gone, there will be virtually no one alive left on the planet. Jared, do you think a war of that scale is possible?
Well, the way you have to look at it, I think in order to look at what could happen in the future and to look back at the past, I mean, World War II and World War I did happen. I think definitely a world war nowadays would be a lot worse than it would have been back then, because, of course, like we were mentioning the other day, a lot more countries have nuclear weapons and nuclear arms, and it would get pretty ugly, put it that way.
Yeah. So the types of weapons that we have nowadays are very advanced and can kill a lot of people in a very short amount of time. And we'll go off that now and go into the nuclear fallout theory, or if there was a world war, nuclear weapons may be used. And basically the first thing that people think that will happen with the nuclear fallout is that at first, if there was a massive launching of nuclear weapons like they thought there was going to be back in the Cold War, entire cities and metropolitan areas would be vaporized right on the get-go. And then the survivors would have to deal with incredibly high radiation levels across the globe. So if the bombs didn't kill you, the radiation in post-apocalyptic environment would. Now, I'm going to reference a video game that some people may or may not know. I know Jer and Brent know about it. You guys know about the game Fallout, where there's a big war and bombs are dropped on Washington, D.C. and various other cities across the world. And one of the things that you have to deal with in the game is you have to deal with your radiation levels. And if your radiation levels get too high, you get killed. So that's definitely something that people living in a post-nuclear strike world would have to deal with.
So here's another quick question that's being asked, Nick. So, in a post-apocalyptic age like that, do you think that times would resort to, I don't know what you call it, Mad Max type of stuff, type of environments with people fighting and things?
Yeah, I think that would definitely happen, because if there was mass nuclear warfare, all of the organized societies and governments in the world would most likely collapse or be extremely weak. And in the absence of those governments, new governments or new societies would have to emerge in order to adapt to the post-apocalyptic world. So yes, I definitely envision a Mad Max scenario if a giant nuclear war or a nuclear fallout event happened.
Well, Brent, what's your opinion on that?
Well, for me, I think that, I mean, if anything were to happen, like nuclear warfare or anything, I think it would be kind of like the movie The Book of Eli. Because, you know, like, it's pretty much what happens, like, in the beginning of the movie, that he explains that there was a war with, I forget who the war was with, but when they launched the nukes, it literally tore a hole in the sky, and it, like, pretty much cooked the earth because of all, it just pretty much eliminated the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would kind of be like that, where, you know, the whole entire world would be like a barren desert.
That makes sense. Hey, Nick, do you have any theories on global warming or any of that in your notes?
Oh, yeah. I'll get to that in a minute. I actually have another note here that would be the opposite of what Brent thinks. Some other people think that after a nuclear fallout, the radiation that goes into the atmosphere, they say, will have some type of a chemical reaction that would send us into a nuclear winter, and that the world would actually be put into a very, very cold ice age. I've heard that out there before. I've seen it, I think, on some Discovery Channel shows or some History Channel shows, that a nuclear strike could send us actually into an ice age and not into a desert. But I also have Brent's theory in my notes, too, to kind of balance off the two. There's different people saying one or the other could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of global warming, I guess I'll kind of repeat the inconvenient truth version, courtesy of Al Gore, to everybody out there. This is basically his Inconvenient Truth movie was an apocalyptic movie in and of itself. Basically, he said that all the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are going to raise the temperature of the Earth by, I think, like 10 or 15 degrees, or possibly more. And then the polar ice caps will melt. And first, the cities along the coasts of the different countries and the different continents will be flooded. There'll be mass flooding because the sea levels are going to raise a lot if the polar ice caps melt. Then after that, there will be sporadic climate change. Basically, he said there'll be a lot more hurricanes and tornadoes, and violent weather patterns will be much more frequent than they are now. And due to the higher temperatures, disease and such as the West Nile virus will be much more prevalent because mosquitoes will be able to breed year-round instead of just in the summer. So there'll be a great, far more amount of diseases in the world if the temperature goes up high enough, because germs need hot, wet climates to reproduce. So that's the global warming apocalypse theory, that if the temperatures get high enough, people first are going to be killed by the flooding that will occur. Then they'll be killed by the violent weather patterns that will emerge. And then finally, there will just be too many diseases for humanity to deal with, and then these species will die out. Do you have any opinion about that theory, Jeremy?
Well, when it comes time to global warming, I think another thing you have to realize is, this goes kind of back to our weather modification show, we already have the power to control the weather, but when there's accidents with that, it's like you said, there's horrible flooding and tornadoes and things like that happen. I think that global warming, if it is true, not saying that it is or it isn't, but if it is true, I think that it can be prevented, but since we're just so dependent on fossil fuels and things, I think it's highly unlikely that the majority of the people will decide to try to change,
Yeah, I think so too. It's
for Pete's sake, Brent drinks fossil fuels for breakfast. He puts it with his cereal.
Exactly.
Weird.
Oh God, but so that's one theory. Here's yet another one. I got so many here that we might not even get through them all in this show. Let's get a little mythological right now. There's the Ragnarok theory, which basically is the end times for the Norse gods and the Norse people's mythology. They say at the end of time, Odin and Thor and many of the minor gods will be killed by some demons and giants. And then the stars and the sun will go black and disappear, and then the earth will sink into the ocean, and everyone will be wiped out. But there is hope, according to the Ragnarok story, which I think it literally translates into English like end of days or end times, the word Ragnarok. The earth then somehow will miraculously come out of the ocean again, and the surviving gods will make some new people, and the earth will be restarted for a new age.
So when was that? How far back does that theory go, Nick?
Well, it goes back to at least the time of the Vikings and possibly further, but all that we have currently now at this point is the mythology that was told by the Vikings and the northern European people, like the Scandinavians and people that live in Norway and Finland, etc.
Yeah.
That was a nice little interesting one. I thought it thought, okay, yeah.
So if the world goes under the ocean, does that mean Aquaman will be the only surviving person?
I guess so. Aquaman would be the only surviving person.
And the Sea Man, 2021.
Yeah. Well,
Nick, do you have any sort of theories, like Brent was saying, that he wanted you to mention about the holy relics being discovered or any of that sort of thing?
Yeah, we can jump over to the Christian apocalyptic theory, which most of us are probably familiar with in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, that talks about how Jesus will return, and then the devil and the demons will fight Jesus and the angels in the battle of Armageddon. And then in the end, Jesus will vanquish the devil and cast him and the demons into the lake of fire, and there will be an eternal paradise on heaven and earth. That's basically the Christian apocalyptic theory in a nutshell. Now, there are a lot of different variations of that theory. Some people interpret that theory in a more scientific way. Like, I've heard some people tell me that the book of Revelation talks about when the sun's going to die out or a nuclear war. I've heard, other people take the strict, Jesus and the devil are going to fight in a battle view. I've heard people talk about how holy relics will be found in the end of days. There's just a lot of different opinions regarding this theory, which is very central, and it's a big part of Western civilization, obviously, because Western civilization, at least modern civilization since the Middle Ages, has been built from a Christian background.
Well, what Brent was saying was, can you talk about the Revelations for a while?
Yeah. Well, I know that before Jesus comes back, I think there will be 6 or 7 angels who will blow horns, and they will summon all the winds across the earth to start basically massive ecological disaster. There'll be earthquakes and floods, and the sun's going to go black. The stars will fall out of the sky, and then there will be the 4 horsemen that will come and ride ahead of Jesus, and then I think Jesus will come right after the horsemen come. I don't remember the horsemen. It's been a little while since I've read the book of Revelations. And then the final battle of Armageddon will commence between the dragon, as Satan is referred to in the book of Revelations, and Jesus, and then the army of heaven against the army of hell.
Well, Brent was saying, the Revelations mention that before all this is supposed to happen, some of the signs that it's going to happen is they're going to find several holy relics. And I know that they found Mount Ararat over in, was it Turkey? They think they found the Ark, Noah's Ark, and then they, like we were just talking, they found all these holy stones and things like that in Scotland. And I was going to say, do you think that there could be a connection, Nick, for our listeners out there?
Yeah, there could be a connection out there. I wouldn't deny that. There, obviously, anybody could say whatever they want about the artifacts and Christianity in general, but it definitely could be a sign that something far greater than we have ever seen is going to come. I know in the Bible it says, no one knows the day or the hour when it will happen, so you just have to be ready any day for the end of the world, I guess. But, yeah, I think that there definitely could be a connection between the finding of these artifacts and the coming of Jesus. I think one thing that has to happen, they say, this is what a lot of Christians say. A lot of Christians say that the Jewish temple in Jerusalem has to be rebuilt before Jesus returns again. I don't know if you have ever heard that before or not.
Brent might have.
Honestly, I haven't. But this temple, where is it located at?
Oh, right now, it's located on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The dome, what do they call it? The Muslim, I think they call it the Dome of the Rock, is located on the site where the old Jewish temple from way back when used to be built. And they control the Temple Mount right now, but the Jews are allowed to go pray at this wall that remains from the last temple that was there, that was pillaged and destroyed by the Romans back, I think, in like 70 A.D. So right now, actually, there's a lot of struggle and conflict actually over the Temple Mount. The Jews are saying it's theirs and that they should be able to build their temple, and then I believe the Muslims say Muhammad was taken up into heaven at that location, so it's really their holy site, and then the Christians have something to say about it. It's a whole big mess right now, but a lot of people say that yeah, they probably have a stake in the game as well, but a lot of people are saying that the Jewish temple needs to be rebuilt, and if that's rebuilt, the end of the world will be coming when Jesus will come on the clouds with the angels and the four horsemen and all that will occur.
Well, Nick, our friend Flycatch in the chat room was asking us earlier, do you know anything about the Mayan calendar? Can you mention that for him?
Oh, yeah. Well, basically in a nutshell, on this year, on December 12th of 2012, a new calendar age, a cosmic calendar will start based on some calculations that the Mayans ran 1,000 years ago or so. And on this day, all the planets will align with each other, and I think they will align with the sun, which should be pretty interesting. Before we get into further discussion about this, Becky brought up something that I saw on Yahoo a couple weeks ago, that they found a mural in a temple in South America which shows that the world is not supposed to end this year according to the Mayans, but rather it's just like a new month is going to start. In other words, it's just going to be a switch from one time period to another. But the most interesting fact that comes from this is that the planets and the sun will align with each other. What in the world do you think could happen when the planets line up with each other? Do you have any opinions with that, Jared Brent?
I don't know, has it happened in the past? Okay, because I don't really think that I've even heard of anybody even mentioning something like that happening before.
I've never heard of anything like that. There's a couple things that concern me about it, just from a pure scientific standpoint. Number one, when all the planets align with each other and align with the sun, what would happen with the gravitational pull? What would happen with gravity? Could the Earth be thrown out of orbit? I've heard some scientists say that when all the planets align, that the Earth could be thrown out of orbit, and then it will drift into space like an asteroid. And that's not very good news for us here, because first off, we could collide with something else in space and we'd be done with very fast, or otherwise we would die very slowly because the temperature of the Earth would plummet without the sunlight touching us. So that's one theory I've heard. And then there's another theory I've heard with that talks about the magnetic poles of the Earth could get messed up, and that could fry our electric equipment. It could deplete the ozone of the layer that protects us from ultraviolet radiation. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's been floated about this date in the past 3 or 4 years. If you've been watching the History Channel in the past 3 or 4 years, there's been shows about December 2012 and the Mayan apocalypse going on forever now. And there's a theory. It seems like there's a theory for every single person that talks about it. Everybody's got their own little theory about what will happen.
Well, Nick, so do you personally believe in this Mayan theory, or what do you think?
My biggest worry about this, I personally don't think anything is going to happen. I think it's another Y2K-like scare. Remember, 12 years ago when the year 2000 happened, all the computers in the world were supposed to shut down and the power grids were supposed to go out, and the end of the world was at hand back in the year 2000. But when clock struck midnight on January 1st of 2000, nothing happened except a few computers kind of had some minor glitches. So the effect of the date the change in the year, from the first millennium to the third millennium rather, the second millennium to the third millennium, was not a big deal like everyone was saying it was going to be. So I think this is going to be much like that. But I do believe that the planets aligning up is something we should be moderately concerned about, because I think the gravitational pull could be messed up, perhaps. Again, I am not a physicist, so I could not give a definitive opinion on it, but that does concern me somewhat, that when the planets align, the electromagnetic field of the Earth could be thrown off, or the gravitational pull of the Earth could be thrown off as well.
So how do you think how did the Mayans predict this? I'm not really exactly sure how they did.
Well, the Mayans actually were quite advanced people. They didn't have the same type of weapons and other machinery that the Europeans had at the time when the conquistadors from Spain wiped them out, but their scientific and mathematical knowledge was far ahead of Europe, I think, at the time. They had observatories, I believe, and they looked at the stars and the various planets in the solar system, and they used these very complicated equations, which we will never know about, because conveniently when the Jesuits and the conquistadors came over, they thought that these mathematical books were written by Satan, so they burned them all, unfortunately. So we don't have the great knowledge that the Mayans were able to concoct, but they looked at the stars and the planets, and they did some really hard calculations and ran the numbers and made a very accurate astronomical calendar.
Yeah, I was thinking, so as far as the Mayans are concerned, do you know if there's any other ancient civilizations like the Native Americans or anyone that had any sort of apocalyptic theories?
Well, I believe every single civilization that's ever been around has thought about, what will happen at the end of time. Unfortunately, in the many theories I do have, I don't have any other theories from the Americas. I do have a theory. I have a couple theories. I have one from the Buddhists and one from the Hindus about the end of the world, but I don't have any from any Native American folklore.
Well, can you mention some of those?
Okay, yeah, definitely. First, the end times for the Hindu religion is called the era of the Kali Yuga. I'm probably not saying it right, but the Kali Yuga is what I'm going to call it. Basically, a demon named Kali will rule over man in an age of darkness where man turns away from religion and turns away from good, and they go towards sin and evil. And then a battle between good and evil will occur where Vishnu, who is part of the Hindu Trinity, will reincarnate as Kalki to defeat Kali to bring in a new, peaceful age upon the earth. I think, obviously I think there's connections or similarities between all these various different folklores and their apocalypses. You could say there's a similarity between the Christians and the Hindus. We talked about the Norse Ragnarok already. There's a lot. Like, for instance, and the Davidians, we'll talk about them. For instance, the Davidian. He is. But for instance, in the Christian apocalypse and in Ragnarok, the sun and the earth, the sun and the stars will turn black in both the Book of Revelations and the end times prophecies from the Norse. So I think that's an interesting similarity there. And of course, in all of these mythological apocalypses, there's always a final battle between good and evil. So I just wanted to point those out. I'll throw out this last religious one I have. The rest I have are fairly scientific. According to the Buddhists, in the end times, the Buddha will be forgotten and human beings will start to act very violently and kill each other off. The world then will be destroyed, but the higher dimensions or the higher worlds which have other beings and gods will survive, and they will recreate the earth after humans destroy it.
So, let me get this straight. So, they're basically saying that people will forget religion altogether, then that they'll just go crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I guess some people that are saying on our Facebook chat, they're saying, so does that mean that you think that nowadays, I guess they said there's more and more people not believing in a God or believing in a religion than ever before. So I guess what they're trying to say is, do you think that might be coming up for people that believe in that religion? It's almost like the Christians, where they think the revelations might be starting soon or already are.
Yeah, a lot of Buddhists and Hindus actually do believe that we are in the end times because of the amount of people that have turned away from some sort of a religion. So, yeah, they think that we are in the end times.
Oh, and here's another thing. So, if you think that if all these religions have similar apocalyptic theories, like they always say there's going to be a second coming of a god or people are going to forget religion, whatever, do you think maybe that since all these similarities, you think it's just a coincidence, or you think maybe that it might be more than a coincidence?
Well, I think it's definitely more than a coincidence, because I personally believe, God talks to everybody in different parts of the world in ways that they can understand, and the Buddhists understand it one way, the Christians understand it another, and the Hindus would, so on and so forth. So, in the Davidian, they spoke, David Koresh was the second coming of the fourth horseman or something, but, I think it's more than a coincidence. Part of it could be coincidental, but I just think that the evidence being that cultures from one corner of the globe to another all have similar beliefs regarding the apocalypse definitely gives rise for a person to believe that there's more than a coincidence going on here.
Okay, what do you think about that, Brent?
What's that?
So what do you think about all that?
I wasn't really paying attention.
Well, anyways, Nick, do you want to mention another theory, Nick?
Here's kind of a funny one we were talking about earlier in the news. Some people say that there will be a zombie apocalypse. As depicted in the Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead and various other zombie movies that have been made throughout the years, zombies will arise from the grave and just begin to go on a basically all-you-can-eat buffet of humans and kill everybody. Apparently, many people have designed survival guides and weapons just in case a catastrophe such as this will ever happen. People have actually put time and effort into preparing the world for a zombie apocalypse, in other words.
Well, I know that there's actually, believe it or not, there's actually a group or gathering in downtown Vegas that they actually prepare for the zombie apocalypse. I guess they do drills and things. I don't know exactly what they do with there, but something definitely that you have to check out when you get here.
I think so. I mean, in the news we were talking about that guy who attacked the man on the freeway and tried to eat him. Maybe the zombie apocalypse is starting. So maybe all these religions are onto something, and the first sign of the apocalypse will be a zombie horde.
Well, I know that when we actually did our zombie show, the first time we did it, because I know we did, for our listeners, we did a follow-up here recently, but on the very first show, we had a caller that said that he had a relative that was working for the government, and they said that they were experimenting with zombies, I guess as we know. And apparently they said that there has been zombie outbreaks in other countries, just not the United States. Now, if you believe in all that, or I guess if you've experienced it, I don't know if anyone of our listeners has, but I guess it's within the realm of possibility, but it would be more likely to happen in undeveloped countries than developed countries.
Yeah.
And I have Brent's firearm, so he would be SOL.
Here's another interesting theory that people have been talking about for a while. It's called the Big Crunch theory. In other words, when the Big Crunch occurs, it's going to be the opposite of the Big Bang. The universe, instead of expanding from an explosion, will contract into a singularity again due to a reverse in gravity, causing a massive black hole in the center of the universe, which will suck everything into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this theory has kind of been discredited by physicists because the universe is expanding at a faster rate than ever before. So it kind of takes away from the belief that the universe is going to be sucked into the middle anytime soon. Rather, it's spreading further and further apart. But I still think it's a pretty interesting thing that some say the universe will suck itself into a black hole. Do you guys think that's possible?
Isn't there a theory that the black, like you were saying, I will get sucked into a black hole, but I thought that some people think that some black holes lead to other dimensions, or they lead to almost like a time warp type thing. So if we got sucked into a black hole, wouldn't it not necessarily be the end of the world if it really did lead to another dimension?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
But then you have to look at it this way.
Yeah.
If we do get sucked into another dimension, and if you believe in doppelgangers now, doesn't that mean that everything would be thrown out of whack because then you would exist on two different realms at the same time?
Yeah, it's some pretty crazy stuff to try to wrap your mind around, but unfortunately nobody's ever been into a black hole and told us what's on the other side, so everything you hear physicists talk about, relating to black holes is pretty much speculation. I mean, they have good evidence and experimental reasons to tell us what they say, but when push comes to shove, nobody's gone into a black hole and has experienced what happens inside one. So until that happens, we'll just have to sit back and wait.
Well, what do you think about that, Brent, about the possibility of us getting sucked into a black hole?
Well, to me, it doesn't really seem like right now our solar system, our universe is. I think I saw it on like a Discovery or something, but they said our universe is actually slowly being sucked into a black hole. So, I mean, it's not going to happen for like hundreds of millions of years, but I mean, we're slowly being sucked into a black hole.
Well, what do you think would happen if we did get in the black hole? Would we just disintegrate, or do you believe, like, some people think it would lead us to another dimension, or what's your opinions on that? If you were alive and witness.
Yeah. For me, I think black holes are kind of like wormholes, I guess you could say. Like, it starts off over, like, say there's one over here on our side of the universe, and it could, you know, we could go into that in that way, and then just end up on another side of the universe, maybe like somewhere where we don't even know where, you know, we are. We could just be on some different type of plane, maybe another dimension, maybe. I'm not sure, but from the way I see it, it would just not transport us, but more like put us in a different location in the universe.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Because, I mean, all that space has to go somewhere. I mean, it's not just being deleted, like, off your computer or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we have about 9 minutes left in the show. I was going to say, did you have some more theories there, Nick?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think I over-prepared for the show. We haven't even gone through half of them. I'll just try to fire out a couple more and see where we go from there. Maybe we'll end the show with some team news or something. I don't know. But here's another theory that's been actually fairly popular for a couple hundred years now, the overpopulation theory. Basically, the people who believe in the overpopulation theory say that too many people will be born and live on the earth, and they will exhaust all of the earth's natural resources, and the human species will no longer be able to live. Now, again, this theory, in my opinion, has been kind of discredited because people have been saying this, I think, since the 1600s or the 1700s. They said that the earth would not be able to handle X many people and that humanity would die out, but the population of the earth has just kept growing and growing and growing, and the amount of food that we have has kept growing and growing and growing. So, I mean, it hasn't totally been disproven, but its credibility is severely damaged, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you go ahead, Ben.
What's that?
Anyways. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I was just saying I agree with Nick.
Yeah, I think that there's always a possibility to make more food. But I think what Nick was saying is, you think that will just pan out? You mean at, like, our maximum capacity of food production?
Yeah, that's basically what the overpopulation theorists say. They say that there will be too many people to feed and we'll just starve each other out.
I guess it's possible, but I guess look at Africa today. We always pick on Africa, but when you look at Africa, they can't feed half of their people, but at the same time, warfare and government corruption and all that, I guess, plays a factor in that.
Yeah. There's other ways people die besides food. So, I guess to say in short, that there's always going to probably be food available because humans do a very good job of killing each other off. So there will always be food available for the next guy when somebody dies.
Yeah, makes sense. I know we had Stanton Friedman on the show before, and he mentioned that we are the best race that's ever lived that's just literally depends on killing each other.
Yeah, it's wild. Let's see. Well, here's another theory I think that would be kind of fun to talk about before the show ends. The theory of a supervolcano. basically what some geologists say is that a massive volcano that would be, 100 times bigger than Mount St. Helens would erupt and wipe off Earth life as we know it. First, the lava flows from the volcano would destroy everything in its path. But that wouldn't be the worst of it. The worst part of it is all the ash from the volcano would go into the atmosphere and block out the sun. And then since the sun would be blocked out, the Earth's temperatures would drop very rapidly and would become very cold almost overnight. So that itself would be the main killer of life on Earth. That's one theory they believe that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs, that a massive volcano blocked out the sun and Earth was just too cold to sustain itself. Mm-hmm. And then the dinosaurs died.
Well, I know there's a theory also about like a super hurricane or something like that I've seen too on TV before.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Yeah, that was a show on the History Channel, I believe. It was like superstorms or something like that, with the wild and out of control weather pattern. Or here's another interesting. This one's very possible and could happen. How about if an asteroid were to hit the Earth? Like in the movie Armageddon.
I mean, that's really unpredictable for the most part.
Yeah, we've had some close calls. We've been lucky so far, and we've avoided them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I know that, what is it? It's Crater National Park in Arizona or New Mexico or one of those. I know they have an actual impact crater from one of the last asteroids that's hit the planet Earth, and it's pretty crazy how big that thing is.
Yeah. Basically, from an asteroid, again, the initial impact of the asteroid would destroy everything in its path, but after that, all the dirt and dust would go into the atmosphere and block out the sun like the volcano would, and it would cool the Earth down so much that it would kill off plants and animals, including humans. That's another theory they put forward to describe how the dinosaurs went extinct.
Practically, it would start another ice age, in short.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, basically another ice age would start. Here's the opposite of what we just talked about. Some people say that there won't be too many people, but that there will be too little people to sustain the human population on the planet. For example, this is a popular topic on YouTube, and this relates especially to Europe. In Europe, amongst the European Caucasian population, the birth rate is far too low to sustain the Caucasian population in Europe and as well in America. So basically, the Caucasian population is committing suicide, and a slow suicide by not having kids. And who's not to say that other, ethnic groups wouldn't start doing this? They would start not having kids, and eventually people would just stop having kids almost altogether, and then the humans would just die out because we wouldn't have enough replacements from one generation to the next.
That makes sense, but sorry to cut you short, Nick, but we're getting our little ring there saying we have about a minute left in the show.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to have to end the show a little bit differently today since the switchboard's not working at the moment. Again, Nick, did you want to say the farewell for the show for today?
Yeah, well, everybody, I'd just like to thank you all for tuning in and listening to BFP Radio. You can tune in again next Saturday. Wait.
Monday next
I don't think we're Monday next week. Okay. Tune in next Monday. We're gonna have some crazy stuff going on next week schedule-wise. So we'll get you guys up to date on what's going on with the show and with the team. And I just like to thank you again all for listening, and have a good night and a good week.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks for listening.